Hello book nerds, welcome to Bookshelf Bunny. I'm Kim and today we'll be doing a 2021 wrap-up. Guys, we made it to 2022, mostly unscathed, I think, I hope. It was kind of a up and down year for myself. I had some bunny emergencies near the end of the year here, and NaNoWriMo also interfered in my ability to read as much as I wanted to read. But all things considered, I think I still did pretty good. My goal was 100 books this year, and I made it to 93. So I mean, that's not terrible. That's not terrible. This is what I did manage to read. If you want to follow me on Goodreads to look at it maybe a little slower, this can be kind of fast. But this is what I managed to read. This was my progress in 2021. All these lovely stats here. I read a lot of good books. I tried to read things that I knew I was going to like, and I also tried to read things that were diverse and sort of out of my normal scope. And I think, all in all, it was a pretty successful reading year. I mean, I can't complain, all in all. I did come up with a list of 10 books that I read in 2021 that had a big impact on me, that I really enjoyed or was pleasantly surprised by. I'm not going to rank them because it's hard to tell you exactly which one was my favorite. It's so hard. But these are the books that I came up with as my sort of top 10 reads of the year. I'll run through them all briefly here just to sort of explain what I liked the most. So the first one I'm going to talk about is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. And I just loved everything about this book. I loved the spooky vibe. I loved the 80s nostalgia feel. And I love how it went from your run-of-the-mill exorcism story to something else. It was just a great story. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Just pure pleasure. Good book. Recommend it for sure. The other one I wanted to talk about was Rainbow Rowell's Carry On. So I read Fangirls last year, and if you're familiar with Fangirls, you know that our main character writes a fan fiction based on a novel series called Carry On, and this book is that world. This is that novel series that she's writing her fanfics based off of. And I just thought that was really fun. I love that she took us into her fictional world that was within her fictional world. It's a great read. It has a really sweet romance in it, and it was a great read. Loved it. Not much else I could say there. Another book that I read I enjoyed a lot was Winter Girls by Laurie Hulse Anderson, and this is a story about an eating disorder and all of the emotional turmoil and psychological internal warfare and the struggle with the family and coming to terms with the condition, everything. It was a heart-rending story that took us inside a very serious issue. This one was recommended to me by Cherry over at Cherry Actually Reads, and I highly, highly recommend that you read it too. The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon was a pretty epic fantasy. This book was huge. It was so long. So long, but it was worth it. It was worth it. Read this book. It's a beautiful world. It's so engaging, and there's action and there's romance, and everything about it just drew me in. Epic fantasy story. A more recent read, one I read in December, was The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek by Kim Michelle Richardson, and this is a story that takes place in the past, in like Kentucky, in the hills, and it's a period piece that follows a woman who has two things going against her. One, she's a woman. And we all know that way back when, being a woman was way harder than it is now. I mean, it's still hard, but it was harder. The other thing going against her was she was a woman of color, but not like you would expect. Have you ever heard of the Blue people of Kentucky? Look it up. It's a real thing. I had no idea. Apparently there's a genetic condition in this region that was brought over from an ancestor in France that resulted in blue skin in a family group. And because of the remote location where this family settled, there was inbreeding. Everyone married their cousins over there. I mean, that's just the way it was, right? But it resulted in a large population of people with blue skin. Fascinating. So this woman, she is a bookwoman. Her job is to travel to the remote locations where families are living and bring them books. It's a library program, but it's something that is delivered. But it is such a fantastic read. Totally floored me. I learned something from this one. There was blue people. My favorite Stephen King read of the year was Rose Madder. This book floored me. I loved the whole domestic dispute, abusive relationship, psychotic, evil husband coming to get the wife. That was an amazing, powerful story in and of itself. But then, of course, it won't be Stephen King unless something extra happens. And there's like a magic painting and a crazy woman who lives in it was like all powerful. I just loved it. It all came together. It was a wonderful story. Recommend it. Another book I read this year that I loved, it was a library borrow, The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. And again, this was a beautiful world. And it centers around like a secret book organization, kind of underground, and there's magic. And I loved it. Read it. Fantastic. My husband actually gifted me a hard copy of this book this year, so now I have it in my collection and I can reread it whenever I want. And believe me, I will. It was such a good book. I also read The Morning and the Evening by Ken Follett, and this is a prequel to the Pillars of the Earth trilogy, which I love. The only downside to the Pillars of the Earth trilogy was the really long explanations about building of cathedrals. I mean, I don't think I'm ever going to build a cathedral, but if I wanted to, I probably could now. Diamond it a little, geek a little, chic understands, trust me. But this book takes us to the beginning of that whole area of the world. We get to meet the settlement as it starts out. And I loved everything about it. I also read Creepshow by Stephen King, the graphic novel, and everything about it was so much fun. I love the stories in there. My favorite, oh God, I don't even know if I can tell you a favorite. They were all so good. My favorite sci-fi this year was The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chalmers. This was lent to me by a good friend who also loves books, and unfortunately my rabbit shredded the book she lent me because that was so bad, guys. So bad. Thankfully she forgave me. I replaced the book with a pretty new copy. But this book was amazing, and I have every intention of reading the rest of the series. Totally hooked me. Beautiful world. It was just a really emotional story that hit on a lot of very human things, and it was hard-hitting, and I loved it, and you should read it. And that's really it for my top 10s. It was so hard to pick this list. I read a lot of good books this year. But I think that's it. I think those are the ones I'm going to stick with. For the upcoming year, I do have some goals. I am a goal setter. This year, I'm going to keep it to a 50 book goal instead of 100. And that's because I also want to focus more on my writing this year. My other goal, unrelated to books, but I guess not really because I'm writing, and that's a book, is I'm hoping to finish a few drafts. I'm hoping to finish a book, finish it, like completely, like make it beautiful and self-publish it. Don't know for sure if I'm going to actually be able to reach that goal, but that's my goal. We're going to try. As far as bookish goals go, aside from reading 50 this year, I also want to practice more mood reading. As you can see in my tag video here, I'm not really a mood reader. I tend to plan ahead what I want to read. I mean, they're books that I know I'm going to like for the most part, or books that I want to try because they're outside of my comfort zone. But I wanna just kind of step back from list making a little bit, just a little bit. Probably still gonna do some list making because that's just my nature. But I want to just read what I feel like reading and see how that goes. It's a thing that I'm gonna do this year. We'll see what happens. For the Little Free Library, if you go to their website at littlefreelibrary.org, I'll post a link in the description below to it. But there is a 50-book reading challenge, and I sort of want to get into that with my community, my local community this year. I am sharing that book challenge in my little library, and I'm also sharing a link to the Little Library's Facebook page so that my immediate community can join me in that. So this book challenge is something I'm going to be doing this year. I would love it if you guys would join me too. That would be a lot of fun to be able to talk about books that we're reading all together. Why not, right? So if you feel like you'd like to join me, let me know in the comments. Download a copy, print it off. I've put it in my beautiful reading journal for the year. I printed it off here, right here. Yes, indeed. And pasted it in there. So I'm going to be doing that. That's another one of my goals this year. I also want to read more indie authors. I want to support more indie authors because that's what I'm going to be. And these are people who have put in the work, and I know it's a lot of work. It's a passion project to write a whole book and throw it out there into the world. And I feel like I could learn from their experiences. So I want to read indie and support my people. The last bookish goal that I have set for myself is I have this ginormous book that I got years ago that I have been picking at, but I haven't finished because it's challenging. The story is fascinating, but it's a French to English translation, and that's a little difficult. I want to finish La Mort de Arthur. So that's my goal for this year. It's a massive, massive book. Huge. This is it. It's huge. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make that happen. Those are my goals. The last thing I wanted to talk about, Haunted Corner Book Club. So a few of my BookTube friends, including Mish at Mishin Cup and Cherry Actually Reads, are co-hosting this exciting book club that features horror books. Check out their videos. I'll list them in the description below for some more information. Join the Discord. I'm also on the Discord. Join their Twitter page. I'm excited. I'm very excited. The first book is going to be Mapping the Interior. I'll be reading that this month. And I love horror. It's my jam. It's one of my favorite genres. And I'm really excited to plug into this community. So please join them also. Do it. It's going to be fun. If you love horror, do it. Okay, book nerds, I think that's it for me. These are my goals. This was my progress. We're going to be starting a new year, new opportunities, and we're going to crush it. We're going to crush it. All of us. We're going to read all the things, and it's going to be great. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments. What are your 2022 goals? How did you make out in 2021? How many books did you read? I want to know. Let me know. Okay, that's it for me. And as always, happy reading.